A Chinese insurer is even now calling for the bank to be broken up. The main news again, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is spurning calls for his resignation after a stunning day in British politics that saw more than 36 ministers quit his government. The man accused of killing 7 at a 4th of July parade near Chicago has admitted he was the shooter and said he was planning to attack a second holiday event. And the number of people worldwide facing hunger has increased by 150 million since the start of the COVID pandemic, according to a new report from the United Nations. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A new report from the National Center for Education shows that an alarming 10% of U.S. high school students graduate without basic object permanence skills. According to the study, a growing number of American seniors are lagging behind their international counterparts when it comes to the crucial knowledge that things don't just disappear if you're not looking at them.
Because it exists even if your eyes can't see it. Am I making sense?
No. U.S. high schoolers have dropped to 17th in science, 25th in math, and a troubling 180th place in the basic cognitive awareness most humans develop as toddlers. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan is asking Congress to fund increased after-school disguise and reveal programs.
It's time to get the kids excited to learn the most obvious mental concepts that make us capable of functioning.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do better. It's just I don't know how I'm supposed to learn anything if I don't even have a teacher.
I'm still here, Vanessa.
Some educators worry that too much focus placed on object permanence might take away from other important skills, such as not touching hot things that could burn you.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Nikki. And Bonnie.
And it's good to be back in the actual studio proper after, 2 weeks. I mean, I was here yesterday as well, but it's different, and it's good to be back here, giving out the number, being able to take calls and all of that great stuff. I love the Porcupine Freedom Festival and I love Fork Fest, but I'm glad to be back home in the air conditioning, first of all, because it got hot, right? Suddenly. I mean, we're also further south here than, up there in the mountains of Lancaster, but 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion tonight. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Uvalde and their attempts to keep their records private so that the public can't learn, this is the Uvalde School District, so that the public can't learn what kind of shady things they were up to. Also, Hong Kong wants to rewrite their textbooks.
All in 1984, literally.
Yes, to suggest that they were never a British colony. And I'm curious, we're going to get into this later, but I'm curious if it's just that, we're splitting hairs about what is and isn't a colony. Because I don't know that Hong Kong was ever actually a British colony, but it was considered part of the British Empire, if I remember correctly. It just wasn't a colony in the sense that...
What would it be if it wasn't a colony?
I don't know. I don't know what the, proper definition of colony versus...
Was it like a territory?
Yeah,
like
see, because the U.S. has territories. I would consider them colonies, realistically. But like the Philippines, I would call that an American colony. But, they wouldn't. They would consider it like a territory. So I don't know. Maybe that's what they're doing. But first off, Apple announcing an extreme privacy mode for targets of government spyware. As soon as I saw this, I knew we had to talk about it. Because they're talking about the spyware made by NSO Group, which is reportedly an Israeli spyware firm. In an attempt to protect its most vulnerable users, Apple has announced an upcoming feature designed to thwart hacking attempts from government malware. And I love that opening sentence. This is from Vice, by the way. I love it because it suggests that the people being targeted by governments are the most vulnerable people out there. I don't know if they meant to suggest that or not, but they did.
Other governments bad, our government good, so...
But, in the American worldview, the Israeli government is basically the American government, right? I mean, the two are intertwined, so if the Israeli government is bad, then American government is bad.
Yeah, that is a little weird that they're demonizing Israel.
And I'm just happy to see that they're recognizing that the people most targeted by governments are the most vulnerable. Apple's announcement specifically called malware created by Israeli spyware firm NSO Group, which was recently caught spying on dozens of journalists, government officials, and dissidents.
I'm sure it was more than that.
I'm sure it was. Similar to how they're doing it in Ukraine. I think despite all of the horrible things that Ukraine has done, I don't think they've started spying on journalists and government officials and dissidents in the same way that Israel has.
Does that say, like, only American journalists and dissidents and stuff like that? Are they specifically targeting Americans? Because that would be so weird.
Is the Israeli government targeting Americans, you mean?
Yeah, like the dozen journalists and dissidents. Are those all Americans, or some of them are...
It would have been a good example of journalism for Vice to link to an article about these dozens of journalists so I could click that and find out what these journalists were. I remember when we talked about it here on Free Talk Live when it first happened, when news of it first broke. But that was like 2 years ago. It was before the FBI raids. It was before COVID, or it was after the FBI raids, and it was after COVID or during COVID. So it just got lost in my memory in the white noise of COVID-19 and everything that's happened in the last 2 years.
Oh, so this has been going on.
I'm sure it has. I mean, the NSA it's the Equation Group. Kaspersky Labs identified, that's what Kaspersky Labs calls them. It's almost certainly the NSA.
The NSO?
The NSA.
Oh, okay.
The National Security Agency for the United States government. And they are insanely good. They can intercept packages being shipped from one side of the country to the other, install for spyware that is hidden in the firmware so you can never undo it. As long as you're using that hard drive or whatever, you're hacked, and you may not ever know it.
Wow.
And you got to wonder what sort of agency would be capable of intercepting UPS trucks shipping from California to Washington, D.C. or whatever. And it's obviously going to be some sort of governmental agency. And Kaspersky says it's probably the NSA, and I tend to think they're probably right. But the NSO group of Israel is just as potent, even if they can't presumably intercept shipments in the United States.
TJ was telling me yesterday when he was in the NSA, he had some kind of program that could look through a foreign language book that was like, a textbook size book and get all the information out of it, like, and summarize it. And he said they used to be worse because it's like AI that they used. And he did this in 2004. But
I know,
he said,
imagine what they have nowadays.
Yeah, he said that it had to be like 95% accurate. So that's insane.
That's crazy.
This new feature from Apple is called Lockdown Mode, and Apple described it as extreme and groundbreaking security capability in its press release published on Wednesday. Lockdown Mode, the first major capability of its kind, coming this fall with iOS 16, and they do some advertisements here, is an extreme optional protection for the very small number of users who face grave targeted threats to their digital security, Apple wrote in the announcement. And Apple does have somewhat of a history of standing up to governments around the world. Right when I think it was the FBI, they came to Apple and said, "Hey, we want to have a backdoor into all of your encrypted devices because all Apple devices are encrypted." Apple refused to turn that over. They did, however, decrypt the backups, so to speak. So if you're backing up your phone to the cloud or whatever, the FBI or whatever government agency can still subpoena all of that information from Apple, and it won't be encrypted. Something like that. But they made a show of doing it, and if you're aware of that and you take measures against it, then Apple is sort of keeping you safe helping you keep yourself safe from the government.
Well, in one of their recent updates, they put something in the iCloud, the new iCloud terms and conditions, that basically none of your information on your phone is protected anymore.
Oh, really?
They were basically like, yeah, we're going to hand it all over to the feds.
That's disappointing. But I mean, there are companies out there that will help keep you safer. Samsung partnered up with Knox, which I don't care much for because it was a partnership between...
What's Knox?
It's security software for Android devices, or specifically Samsung devices, and probably some others, but it was co-developed by Samsung and the NSA.
Wow.
So it's not, if I recall correctly, this was like 2013, 2014 that I first looked into it, but I'm pretty sure it was with the NSA or something like that. And it's very difficult to remove it from your phone. Like, it's there, to keep you from being able to root your phone and to remove it from your phone. And sure, supposedly it keeps your phone from being hacked and all this other stuff, but I would rather trust myself with that than trust something, co-developed by the NSA. In practice, lockdown mode turns off several features that can be exploited by hackers who use government spyware made by companies such as NSO Group or Kangaroo, which they did actually link to, and I've never actually heard of. So it's another Israeli spyware vendor, shockingly enough. The features that will be turned off if a user decides to use lockdown mode are accepting attachments sent via iMessage. Well, you should stop using iMessage and start using Signal, first of all. That's end-to-end encrypted. Your messages are safe, and you can still send and receive images because they'll be encrypted. Some web technologies, like a type of JavaScript compilation, incoming FaceTime calls from unknown callers, wired connections to a computer when the phone is locked. It's, similar things like that security-minded people probably aren't using in the first place. I tend to think you're people who are serious about security, they're probably not using iPhones in the first place. And if they are, they're not using FaceTime and iMessage and things like that. They're using Matrix and Telegram and Signal and Wire and all of these other technologies that are end-to-end encrypted. I mean, WhatsApp is really popular, but that's owned by Google, and you'd have no idea if it's actually encrypted or not. What do you think? Is this a good step toward keeping people safe from governments? Can Apple be trusted here? 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to call in and talk about whatever is important to you. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Nikki.
And Bonnie.
And I want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. It is the best place to go to learn about cryptocurrency. I have not even heard about the value of cryptocurrency since I've been gone for the last 2 weeks or so. Last I heard, it was still hovering around $19,000 to $20,000. I imagine it's probably, if it had shot back up to $70,000, I would have heard about it. And if it had dropped down much lower than that, I would have heard about it. So I'm assuming here that it's still operating somewhere around that price point.
Yeah, a lot of stuff went up yesterday, supposedly, or maybe like 2 days ago. I heard about that. But it's all at Bitcoin's at like 20,000 right now.
Well, that's good. But the price of Bitcoin isn't why you should be interested in it. You should be interested in it because it can set you free of the financial system and the ability of governments to inflate the currency to pay for wars around the world. Bitcoin.com is your source for all information regarding it. Click Getting Started at the top of the page. Take a few minutes out of your day to learn about this important world-changing information. And if you do already know about it, go to news.bitcoin.com to stay up to date on all of the news and headlines that are relevant to you. All on a sleek, easy-to-use website. That's news.bitcoin.com. Now, we're talking about this article from Vice here about Apple and their attempts to create a lockdown mode on your Apple devices that will presumably help keep you safe from government intrusions. Now, first of all, it raises so many obvious questions. Like, first of all, why is it necessary to have a lockdown mode to keep people safe from government intrusion, right? Aren't there supposed to be like courts and warrants and things like that are supposed to keep governments from, doing this sort of thing? But no, those don't apply.
Maybe Ian can get that software on his phone and keep him safe from government intrusion.
Does he use an iPhone?
No.
Well,
I forgot about that.
Ian, at least, he had to install government spyware specifically because the government told him to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that really counts.
which is man, that's horrible, right? But I mean, that is what, the price of, being an activist sometimes. But the average person, journalists, they mention, shouldn't have to have a lockdown mode to keep them safe from the spying of the Israeli government or the American government or the Russian government or the Chinese government or whatever other government you want to insert into the equation here. People should have the right to privacy from their governments. Yep. And they simply don't. Another question is, why isn't this standard, right? If you can protect people from government intrusions, then why is this an extra security mode that has to be activated instead of being the standard? And of course, the reason for that is because it keeps your device from being useful.
Well, and that's the thing too. There are so many steps that people could take to be more secure. Like the same thing with passwords.
Yeah.
You could have a secure password, but it's too difficult for people to remember. So instead they just say password 123. It's too difficult for people to actually, and a lot of people just simply don't care. They want to use Facebook. They want to use Apple products. It's just easy and convenient, and that's more important to the majority of people than their security and privacy.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't live my life the way that Chris Wade does. I just couldn't. Putting my phone in metal case
I wish
every time
I
I
could,
leave.
honestly.
I wish I could, but
that's goals.
I mean,
yeah.
I prefer to take a simpler approach, right? Instead of going to the extreme that like Chris Wade does, I mean, like Pat, you mentioned passwords. Password managers are a thing, and some of them have a pretty good history, like LastPass, which I think they were recently bought by LogMeIn, which has a long history of being pro-encryption and stuff like that. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of tech companies you can really trust to put their money where their mouth is, but LastPass is probably one of them, but it doesn't matter because the way their software is designed, all of that password data is stored locally on devices and not in a cloud or something like that. I don't know exactly how all of that works, but you just have one master password that can be as complicated as you want, and you install some sort of two-factor authentication, not text messaging, something like an actual authenticator app. And, then you're required to enter that code every time you want to access your passwords, or you can remember your personal laptop or whatever if you want.
But even that's too complicated. You just lost a lot of people because that is too complicated for people,
And that's scary because that's super easy. It's a Chrome extension.
And
it's
for
an
some
app.
of it, it's like bank account information, like serious stuff that you don't want to get hacked, that people just can't even be bothered to care to secure it. And then they get robbed and they're like, oh, how did this happen?
I used to be bad about that. I had like 5 passwords that I alternated between, but for banking applications and stuff like that, I used the super secure one that was basically, a statement with a bunch of characters and with a bunch of symbols and numbers and stuff in it and capital letters. So it was a reused password, but it was still a complicated one.
Yeah, my bank account password is like 40 characters long.
See, that's what I love so much about LastPass, though, is I have no idea how long some of these are because it can let me make a 512 long character password if I want to. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Why not? Make it extra secure, right? With all sorts of uppercase letters, numbers,
To me,
symbols.
though, if it's not stored in my brain, I feel like I can't trust it. And I probably can. I'm sure LastPass is very secure, but the paranoia in me is just like, nope.
That's how I feel too. And I know it's illogical, but I feel the same exact way. Ian is always like, why don't you use your LastPass? And I'm just like, because I can just remember a few really complicated passwords. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this on the air, but that's what I do. But
I mean, if it's like a sentence or something like that, there's nothing wrong with that because I mean, it's a lot of people use sentences that are like 40, 50, 60 characters, and it's easy to remember some of them. Sometimes there's, Leet Speak or whatever, where they use numbers instead of letters or whatever. But if you can do that, it's not necessarily a problem. It's the reusing of passwords that can become an issue. But then again, if your password is sufficiently complicated and you're not entering it into like the public library computer or whatever, you're probably, on fairly safe grounds.
Yeah, and after the feds stole all my phones, I switched from all the passwords I used to use. I used to use the same passwords that I used, like alternatives of the same type of password that I started using when I started my first Neopets account when I was 7.
I suspect that's true of most people, right? I mean, until they actually sit down to analyze their security, they're like, wow, I came up with that password when I was in the 7th grade. It might be time to change that or whatever. But I mean, the heart of the matter is that if you want to be secure, there's a convenience trade-off. Like if I want to go log into my banking app or whatever, I'm going to have to first sign into LastPass, enter a two-factor authentication code. Well, first I'm going to have to enter that password, enter a two-factor authentication code, then copy the password from LastPass into the banking app, and then probably get another two-factor authentication. That to be secure like that takes me a long time. Most people just want to. Most people don't even want to unlock their phone. They just want to swipe to unlock or whatever and have it happen automatically. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that, or any of the, or they want to use a thumbprint, or they just want their phone to automatically unlock when they look at it. You got to trade off that stuff. And we're going to talk more about lockdown mode and what it can and can't do. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join us. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. Do you lock down your phone? Do you think it's worth it? It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit, despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. It follows scrutiny of his handling of investigations into a fellow lawmaker accused of sexual assault. Ellen Milligan is UK politics correspondent for Bloomberg.
Boris Johnson remains defiant. That's despite being told by senior members of his cabinet, Grant Shapps, Kwasi Kwarteng, Michael Gove, Priti Patel, that he should resign. There are two competing schools of thought going on in Number 10 at the moment, one that he should go, one that he should stay. And according to our sources, he's leaning towards staying. He is remaining defiant.
Officials say the man, accused of killing 7 and injuring dozens more at a 4th of July parade near Chicago, has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated attacking another event. 21-year-old Robert Cremo III was in court on Wednesday, charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder, as FSN's Tony Waterman reports from the scene of the shooting in Highland Park.
Robert Cremo III appeared in court via Zoom, his long dark hair around his face as he stared blankly into the camera. He didn't enter a plea, but prosecutors say he's confessed to being the Highland Park shooter. Police also revealed frightening new details about what Cremo did during an hours-long manhunt, driving, they say, to neighboring Wisconsin, where he seriously contemplated carrying out another attack with a second rifle found in his car. They don't know why he eventually turned around, but say it appeared there wasn't enough planning to follow through with it. Police are also still searching for a motive, but indicated Cremo had a fascination with the numbers 7 and 4, the month and day of the attack. Meanwhile, questions are mounting over how Cremo was able to legally purchase firearms despite at least 2 troubling encounters with law enforcement.
US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris have spoken with the wife of US basketball star Brittany Griner, who's been detained in Russia since February. Griner had written a letter to the US President on Monday where she asked for help to free her. US markets end the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. As FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
The Dow rose by 69 points or 0.2%, while the S&P rose for the third day in a row to close up by 0.4%. The Nasdaq also gained 0.3%. It comes as minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting showed the central bank is committed to bringing down inflation. Members said they would like to see at least a 50 or even another 75 basis point increase in interest rates in July. And they recognise that even tougher action could be needed if the rising cost of living persists.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and I want to say thank you to Corey, who was yesterday's amplifier. This means that Corey is a member of the AMPS program. You can find that at amps.freetalklive.com. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. So if you value the show and the ideas of liberty, reaching close to 200 radio stations and always hoping to add more, then you might consider joining the AMPS program. That's the best way to do that. That's amps.freetalklive.com. It only takes $5 per month. That gets you in it. It does come with a number of cool little perks, like there's the AMP-only Matrix chat. There's an Amp-Only Facebook group and some other cool stuff, so check it out. And Corey, thanks so much for your contributions. Let's go to the phones. However, we have Suzanne, who is on the line from Florida. Suzanne is the founder and owner of TruthSmacks. That's truthsmacks.com. You may have heard us talking about them here on Free Talk Live intermittently over the last several, I think about 2 months now. Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Arya. Thank you for having me on. Just wanted to give your listeners an update.
Yeah, because there has been some confusion. I'm based about where exactly TruthSmacks stands and all. I know we're doing a Farewell 15, I believe. If people go to truthsmacks.com, that's Farewell 15 to get 15% off orders and a free small bag for every 10-ounce ordered. So what is going on here? Fill me in.
Well, so that coupon code is still good and will be honored, and the free small bag as well with every large bag ordered. But, so, it's just been a real struggle for some time, and financially I just didn't feel I could keep it going because I was always putting more in than I was getting. It was just,
Sure.
It was just, I love what I've created, and everyone who tries it, they love it. So I'm proud of what I made of it. Yeah, it was becoming burdensome, so I thought, I'm just gonna walk away, or I'm gonna sell it. I just, I was overwhelmed.
Well, it's best to choose yourself, like choose what's best for you, and I think it reached a lot of people. I really liked reading the quotes on the bag when I first got them.
Thank you.
It is
really
an
good.
awesome product.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to walk away from something that you've built up like that, right? So,
well, right, exactly. It's not, and that's why I've been just going around and around in circles in my mind. What should I do? I don't want to give it up. I put my life savings into it. I put all this time and energy into it, and I'm proud of it. So I announced on Facebook going out of business sale, and I gave the Farewell 15 coupon code, and the outreach was just overwhelming. People saying, "Oh, please don't give up," and people placing big orders and saying, "Please, just
that's nice."
This is not. Yeah, people have been so supportive, and
that's really great news. I mean, it saddens me that it came to that before, because I started a small IT business years ago, and all of my friends and family, they loved the idea, right? But none of them were willing to hire me to do IT work or anything like that. And, when I was trying to start a band, they all liked the idea, but none of them were going to buy one of my songs or anything like that until I was like, all right, guys, I'm giving it up.
Very frustrating.
And then it's like there's the guilt trip aspect to it. I realize that's not what you were trying to do, but I mean, people shouldn't be, if they support you, they shouldn't have to, be guilted into supporting you. They should just support you.
Well, exactly. And so as soon as people started ordering, I immediately contacted everyone who placed an order, which there were only like 5 people, but they were large orders. And I was grateful. And I said, look, there's a 10% chance I might not go out of business because of all the support I'm getting. And so I just want to let you know, and you can revoke your order, and I will honor that. And they said, no, I want the order. I want it to go through. I want to support you. I've been meaning to do it for some time. In fact,
that's so nice.
I know. And one of your listeners ordered with crypto, which was awesome.
Very cool. I did not realize that TruthSmacks takes crypto. I'm going to have to update the live read here to make a note of that. So what are you leaning toward at the moment? I mean, is this an endeavor that you wish to continue pursuing?
I do. If I can just manage to support myself in the process. So yeah, I'm going to double down. I don't want to go back to Korea because I was interviewed for a university position over there. That's where I was the last 20 years, but I left. Why? Because of the stupid mask. I couldn't take it. It was draining. It's like a slave muzzle. It is a slave muzzle.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it at all. It does no good, in my opinion. And so it's just draining. And the thought of having to wear a slave muzzle, a face diaper. Again, I don't want to do it. So I'm going to do what it takes to stay here, find a job that I enjoy, that'll pay the bills, and keep Truth Snacks going on the side. I'm determined.
It is hard to go back to jobs with the masks after you've been freed from that, because I know I had to wear a mask at the hospital, and it was kind of like, well, it was happening. It's like, oh, this sucks, but whatever. And then once I stopped working that job and I didn't have to, even like to wear one to go on an airplane, I was like, I'm dying. I can't breathe. You know, it's hard to go back to that.
Well, Suzanne,
It is.
Thank you so much for the update. I hope it continues working out. Of course, people can find that at truthsmacks.com. And, you know, I want you to continue this. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but it is also true that, you know, a large number of business owners, when they're starting their business, they do still work a full-time or a part-time job or something like that to pay the bills. So
it's hard to start up your own business. I know I've done it, or I've tempted to do it a few times, and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of money. So especially when that has a product, right? Like my IT firm was expensive to get going, and that was just services, right? I wasn't trying to sell anything, so I didn't have to have, you know, $40,000, $50,000 worth of inventory or whatever. I just had to be able to do what I was trying to do. But when you're trying to actually have a product like truthsmacks.com is, that's even more of an investment that you need. Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much, Suzanne. That's truthsmacks.com. Evidently, now you can pay with cryptocurrency. I don't know if you have to. I guess I should have kept you on to get an answer to that. I imagine you're probably not using BitPay or something like that on your website at this point, or AnyPay has a WordPress plugin. But either way, go to truthsmacks.com if you want to find out more about it. The reason they're called Truth Smacks, for those who haven't been paying attention, is that each bag has a number of truth-oriented quotes or freedom-oriented quotes on the back, because there is also a freedom variety of Truth Smacks. And I
don't think that we've had those ones.
The freedom variety ones?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's just got different quotes on them. I don't know. Or maybe it's that the original flavor are the truth quotes and the peppermint infused are the freedom quotes. I don't know. I'm not a big you know, trail mix kind of person, but that's what Truth Smacks is. It's trail mix, and it's all organic. Well, I don't know if it's all organic, but it's not none of this overly processed crap.
I think she did say it was organic. I really like trail mix in general. Me and Ian eat a lot of it, and we really like Truth Smacks. In fact, we just ate our last one, so I'm sure we'll be buying some more really soon. Especially since they're not going out of business now. That makes me really happy.
Yep, that's truthsmacks.com. I remember, you know, like I said, I'm not a big fan of trail mix, but we did have like 4 or 5 bags that Suzanne brought up to us at the Free Talk Live booth at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And, you know, people would come up and they would just hang out and they would just, you know, snack on them. They were gone before Fork Fest even started.
So I looked into how you pay with crypto, and she just has QR codes up there that you scan to pay.
Nice.
And that's
Okay.
what it appears. Like she has Monero, Bitcoin Cash, Pirate Chain, regular Bitcoin. So
nice.
That is awesome. Monero for trail mix, man.
Yep.
I love it. Suzanne, thank you so much for the great work you're doing out there. I'm impressed. I mean, I don't believe she was taking cryptocurrency prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, because she was there.
And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She's interviewed on the show.
Cool.
And now she takes cryptocurrency. I don't know. Maybe those two things are related.
And she's smart for being happy about taking crypto now while it's down, because some businesses are like, oh, it's down. I don't want to accept it right now.
That's when you want to accept it.
That's when you want to accept it.
That's how you make money.
603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in here. We're going to talk more about what you can do to protect yourselves from government intrusion. That's 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. What are your tips to keep safe from hostile actors, government intrusion, maybe just miscellaneous black hat hackers out there that are trying to spread malware and stuff like that? 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. I've never had one of my personal computers, I don't think, not since I was in the 9th grade or maybe the 8th grade, hit with any viruses or ransomware or any of this other nonsense. And it's not because I'm doing anything, I don't run antivirus software. I hated that about running an IT company, right? Anytime a customer got hit with a virus, that was always their first question. Well, I thought I had an antivirus, right? Which is like the equivalent of, asking how did you get HIV if you always used protection, right? It's okay. These things are not foolproof or whatever. And just, that's what people tend to think when it comes to antivirus. It's bloatware at this point. It's feel-good software that just slows your computer down and achieves absolutely nothing.
You know what's really fun? When I was maybe 14 or something, I downloaded an antivirus software that turned out to be a virus. And I'm 14 years old, not really knowing any better. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like a great idea. I should download some antivirus software because I'm using LimeWire and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it totally gave me a virus, and it was Yeah, so I learned my lesson.
So what is the point? Why do people want to give other people's computers viruses, and what do they get out of it?
Well, ransomware is the most popular one these days. It encrypts your files and you're like, hey, give me some cryptocurrency and I will decrypt your files for you. And in my experience, having dealt with this in the past for clients, they do decrypt your files. I don't know if this is still true because now there's a lot of imitators and stuff like that. And initially in the early days, they had to have a good reputation of, hey, if you actually paid the ransom, they would decrypt your files. Otherwise, no one would ever pay the ransom, right? But I suspect at this point, 10 years later, however long it's been, it's less likely that they're going to actually decrypt your files. So that's one thing they get out. They also, identity theft, they gain access to your bank accounts on occasion, or, well, your credit card information or whatever, because a lot of, like, Google Chrome, it has most people's credit card data saved into it.
And that's another thing that kills me. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's such a bad idea. Not even hackers. Someone else can, if your computer is open, just go on your computer and start buying stuff with your credit card. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
One thing that is so annoying to me is on my iPhone, every time I type in a password, it asks me, do you want me to save your password? And I'm just like,
that's
no.
so annoying.
Yeah, I
hate when
that
it does
as well.
that too.
But one of the more bizarre things I learned when doing IT work was that the best antivirus software out there sounded like it was a virus, right? Like superantispyware.com, right? You think, oh God, that's got to be spyware, right? That's got to be a virus. No, it was one of the best virus remover tools out there. And like rootkits were a major problem with Windows XP back in the day. And I still don't even understand what a rootkit even was, but there was like only one tool that actually took care of it. And it was called Combo Fix, right? Like you go
Sounds legit.
Yeah, you go to PCRepair.com and you install their tool or whatever, and it's going to fix everything. But no, it actually worked, and it was not a virus. But
so rootkit is a virus?
It's a type of virus. I haven't run into it since Windows XP, so it may have been a type of virus that was unique to that era. But I mean, Windows Vista, Windows 7, all of these operating systems since, I mean, they still get viruses, I'm sure, but I don't do IT work anymore, and I don't generally hang out with people who, download, video players from porn.com or whatever. So I don't hear about too many viruses.
So why don't Linuxes get viruses?
Because no one uses them. If you're going to write a virus, you're going to write it for the operating system used by 99% of people instead of one. There are Linux viruses out there, but first of all, your average Linux user, yes, they're more knowledgeable than your average PC user.
And that's the thing too. Probably most people that are using Linux aren't going to click on the find hot Asians in your area,
Yeah. Sure. I mean, and it's difficult to make Linux do anything that you kind of want it to do. To be like, I used to run a Linux Mint, and Mint is like the most Windows-ish of the Linux operating systems. Ubuntu used to be the more popular one, but it got replaced with Mint, and Mint is very, very similar. But like with Windows, if I want to use a VPN, my preferred VPN, which I can't use right now due to legal conditions, but it was WinScribe, and they had a nice little app. It's also available for mobile. You just install it on your phone or you install it on your computer. You click the button.
Not
to turn
on
it
Linux.
on, and you're good to go. No, on Linux, there's this long command line thing, and then you have to enter all of these settings through command line, whereas with Windows, you have this nice little graphical interface. You click the drop down and connect to Singapore or whatever. Here, you're manually typing in. You're looking up country codes and stuff like that on the internet. It's completely that was
speaking of inconvenience in the name of security.
And WinScribe was like, we support Linux, right?
Sure you do.
I mean, technically it was true. Other VPNs like ExpressVPN or NordVPN, you can't even run them on Linux. But WinScribe, you could. I love WinScribe, by the way. If you go to look them up on Facebook, they do have a Facebook page, and it just says, if you're seeing this, then you don't take security seriously
That's awesome.
There was one point where, back when I was using it, I don't remember what it was, but they had really clever messaging. Like WinScribe, they're cheap and they take cryptocurrency. It's like $30 for a year service and unlimited data.
Bad.
And I'm not being paid to say this, and I haven't been able to pay WinScribe in like 2 years now, but I use them for a reason. They're great, and they actually take things seriously, and they take cryptocurrency. You get a year's VPN for like $30 in Bitcoin Cash, man. What's not to love about that?
I might switch.
Yeah,
You sold me.
I think it's worth it, right? And it is available for mobile as well. So I mean,
Is it win like you win or wind?
Wind, like yeah, WIND. It's a cool little app, and I loved it. But it was difficult to use on Linux, and I'm not a novice when it comes to computers, right? I know my way around a computer. Not Linux though. Like. I play a lot of video games, and this is primarily why I use PC. And people are like, you shouldn't be using Windows at all. I was like, okay, well, look, when Resident Evil Village runs on Linux, give me a call. Right? Well, technically, you can run on Linux, yes, at like 3 frames per second, right?
Yeah.
Sure, I could render it on this notepad with a pen and paper, too, and say that I'm playing it if that's really what I want to do.
Yeah, there's been instances where I was trying to download something on my computer, and it was so difficult that I just used Matt's computer instead because he runs Windows. I'm like, it's not even worth it for me to take the time to figure this out. I'm just going to use a different whatever software.
But that's why there are fewer viruses written for Linux because fewer people use Linux, and the average Linux user is not going to click on the ad for hot Asian singles near them or whatever.
Oh, I just thought that it couldn't get viruses. That's what I thought from I don't know. Ian always says Linux doesn't get viruses.
Well, that's the same thing they used to say about Apples too. That was the thing about Apples, they have really good virus protection.
I mean, that's true for Windows now as well. It says Microsoft Security Essentials came along with Windows Vista, and now they have an actual Windows Defender, stuff like that. But there were antitrust reasons that were keeping Microsoft from being able to write an antivirus, because Microsoft knows what their operating system should. Well, no, they don't. Microsoft are idiots. But in general, you would expect a corporation to know what its operating system is going to be doing at any given moment. So they would be the best ones to write antivirus software for that operating system. But I don't remember the specifics, but it was some kind of antitrust nonsense that was preventing them from doing it. And they'd use some backdoor through Microsoft Security Essentials or something.
The government keeping us safe.
Yeah, essentially that. But there are ways. I mean, just like I'm running Windows 10 now. I've been running it for a long time. I'm sure Windows 10 gets viruses, but I'm not doing anything particular to try to keep myself safe from viruses or anything like that. I used to download plenty of torrents and stuff like that. But if you're downloading Halloween Kills or whatever, and you find that it's 134 megabytes, that's probably not the movie, and it's probably just a virus. Or if you're going to install a game or something like that, and it pops up as 16 kilobytes. This just set off some flags, but most people don't look for things like that. The biggest thing that people can do to keep themselves from getting viruses is to go into file options. Just open your File Explorer, that little folder icon, hit Alt, hit Options, and turn off Hide Known File Extensions. Because it's like PDFs and Word docs and stuff like that, they all use the same file extensions, and a lot of viruses, they hide that. They pretend to be .doc or .pdf or whatever, but when you double click it, it actually installs this virus or whatever, and you would catch that if you weren't hiding the known file extension, because you would see .exe at the end of it, and you go, oh, well, that's actually a virus. That's probably the best thing people can do, but that's not going to help you from the government. 603-283-6160. Apple thinks they can protect you from the government. I'm not convinced that anyone can, and I think that's all the more reason that the government should be abolished. But 603-283-6160. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we need this government overreach. Maybe Israel actually needs spyware.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit, despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. It follows scrutiny of his handling of investigations into a fellow lawmaker accused of sexual assault. Ellen Milligan is UK politics correspondent for Bloomberg.
Boris Johnson remains defiant. That's despite being told by senior members of his cabinet, Grant Shapps, Kwasi Kwarteng, Michael Gove, Priti Patel, that he should resign. There are two competing schools of thought going on in number 10 at the moment. One, that he should go, one, that he should stay. And according to our sources, he's leaning towards staying. He is remaining defiant.
Officials say the man, accused of killing 7 and injuring dozens more at a 4th of July parade near Chicago, has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated attacking another event. 21-year-old Robert Crimo III was in court on Wednesday, charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. As FSN's Tony Waterman reports from the scene of the shooting in Highland Park.
Robert Crimo III appeared in court via Zoom, his long dark hair around his face as he stared blankly into the camera. He didn't enter a plea, but prosecutors say he's confessed to being the Highland Park shooter. Police also revealed frightening new details about what Crimo did during an hours-long manhunt, driving, they say, to neighboring Wisconsin, where he seriously contemplated carrying out another attack with a second rifle found in his car. They don't know why he eventually turned around, but say it appeared there wasn't enough planning to follow through with it. Police are also still searching for a motive, but indicated Crimo had a fascination with the numbers 7 and 4, the month and day of the attack. Meanwhile, questions are mounting over how Crimo was able to legally purchase firearms despite at least 2 troubling encounters with law enforcement.
US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris have spoken with the wife of US basketball star Brittany Griner, who's been detained in Russia since February. Griner had written a letter to the US President on Monday where she asked for help to free her. US markets end the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. As FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
The Dow rose by 69 points or 0.2%, while the S&P rose for the third day in a row to close up by 0.4%. The Nasdaq also gained 0.3%. It comes as minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting showed the central bank is committed to bringing down inflation. Members said they would like to see at least a 50 or even another 75 basis point increase in interest rates in July. And they recognise that even tougher action could be needed if the rising cost of living persists.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at one of the greatest banking scandals in history. It's been 10 years since HSBC was fined nearly $2 billion in the US for facilitating the laundering of drugs cartel money in Mexico, specifically cash generated by the drugs operations of Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo. How HSBC became entangled with his cartel is the subject of a new book called Too Big to Jail, and it's authored by British journalist Chris Blackhurst.
HSBC at that time was looking to be the biggest bank in the world. And in the course of that, they bought a bank in Mexico. It was a small bank, primarily in the northwest of Mexico, which is the drugs country. HSBC said that they would apply their controls. What happened was they took their eye off the ball. They carried on buying things. And meanwhile, this bank, which they renamed HSBC, was completely out of control. It's almost like a banking equivalent of Heart of Darkness, where this out of control thing was happening in a far-flung part of the world.
The $1.9 billion fine levied against HSBC was a US record, and while the bank's size may have headed off the threat of more serious penalties, its largest shareholder, a Chinese insurer, is even now calling for the bank to be broken up. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. Officials say that the man accused of killing 7 at a 4th of July parade near Chicago has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated another attack. And US markets ended the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On July 21st, 2007, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the final installment in the widely popular Harry Potter series, was released, as excited fans all over the world eagerly flipped to the book's final pages to find out if Harry and Lord Voldemort finally
Author J.K. Rowling had already succeeded in creating one of the most popular literary franchises of all time. And of course, much of that success was owed to the expertly crafted sexual tension that steadily built up between the series' protagonist, schoolboy wizard Harry Potter, and the Dark Lord Voldemort. Everyone in the country wanted to know whether or not they would and if they did how many times would they and who would be who.
And that was what happened this week in history. In the words of Mother Teresa, if there is one lesson to learn from the past, it's that no matter what you do, there will always be a bunch more crippled dying kids.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to control the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. Again, that's 603-283-6160. And with you tonight is Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki, and we've been talking about Apple here and their attempts to keep people safe from government intrusions. I don't think they're going to be successful, but, you know, they want to do this, and I think that's good, right? And I think they're accurately portraying the issue as being governments and government overreach and things like that. I mean, the very fact that the Israeli government has not one, but at least 2 spyware organization, I don't know what you would call them, the spy agencies that are making spyware that has allegedly compromised tens of thousands of iPhones, that's an issue in and of itself. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on that.
It's weird because the United States, they had to be, pushed until they admitted that they had an NSA. But the NSA just spies on Americans, right? It would be weird if we had maybe we do, but it would be weird if the NSA had like a stated mission of spying on other countries. They probably do.
Oh, sorry, Nikki.
I was just saying they probably do.
I think the CIA is for spying on other countries, right?
Yeah, well,
and the NSA spies on Americans, if I remember correctly.
Did they admit that, though?
Which part?
The CIA goes out and, well, I guess they're gathering intelligence. They just hide it behind the word intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's well known that the CIA is out there spying on the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians.
Well, that's how they keep us safe, right?
Well, that's how they create worldwide shenanigans, at the very least. I don't think I've been made safe.
Other countries bad, United States government good.
Well, that's
right, I forgot.
Yeah.
That's certainly what the U.S. propaganda would like us to believe, right? But when I look at these evil monsters allying themselves against one another, I just don't see any good guys in the picture here. It's one evil organization fighting another evil organization. That's one of the things that always confused me about Pestilence. I mean, Mark Edge, when he went on this anti-Chinese rampage, it wasn't really a rampage, but he became very anti-China for a very long time.
When was this?
It was shortly before the raid.
Whenever all the other conservatives did.
Yeah, he became convinced that China was like going to take over the world, and they were going to, they were using TikTok to spy on us, and all of this other kind of nonsense.
Might be true.
I mean, it may be true, sure, but
oh yeah, I remember Ian and Mark fighting about it. It was just an Ian and Mark episode, like a few weeks before I met you guys.
Sure. But I mean, it was I don't even remember where I was going with it. I don't remember how I got started talking
just
about
that Mark is all against the Chinese government, like it's somehow worse.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I guess I kind of understand where he's coming from, and that the Chinese government, because we're not Chinese, they would probably oppress us more. I mean, based on what they're doing to the Uyghur Muslims, probably.
Yeah.
But I also haven't really seen anything out of the Chinese government that suggests they actually want to deal with the headache that would be conquering the United States.
Well, and you know what? I'm more worried about the U.S. government because those are the people that are currently,
Oppressing
attacking us.
Yeah. Absolutely. But let's go to the phones. We have Renee on the line from Louisiana. Renee, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah. Can I make a comment on that Chinese thing?
Absolutely.
It's like the cup half full, the cup half empty analogy. Is the lesser of evils. Usually the jerks who live right next to you are more in tune to appease you because you could grab at them. Then the jerks on the other side of the sea that has no apologies how much they will flood your markets with garbage that don't work. Because I do believe China won't be involved in everything anyhow. They don't know how because they do send a lot of junk that don't work over here, unlike the Japanese that send better products here. But that's my analogy. The jerks over there will do us more harm because they don't have to answer to us at the end of the day. They're over there. The ones here, if we get mad enough, they kind of have to be nicer to us because we're out here with them.
Does the federal government all the way in Washington, D.C. really have to be nice to you in Louisiana? Like, they're not going to have any personal, responsibility if they do anything to you, honestly.
If we gang together, Louisiana has the choke points to the Mississippi and a lot of the oil resources. I mean, us in Texas, we are the gas tank of the country. If we got mad enough and organized.
I don't disagree with the assessment. I mean, every government throughout human history and every government in the world today requires the consent of their citizens. Even the Chinese government requires its people to consent to the rule of that government. Now, it's true that they're not, whether they want to consent, they're consenting because they may or may not have a choice, which isn't really consent, but every government persists because its people have not revolted against it yet.
Yeah. I hate to immediately feel extremely pessimistic whenever people say, yeah, well, if we ganged up against the government, because it is true. If we ganged up, not ganged up, if we stood up for our own rights, then the government would have no power. It's just that it seems so out of reach with the average state of people's minds nowadays because of the government indoctrination from public school to television to pretty much every single thing people consume.
And people are cowards. I think that gets overlooked a lot. People are chickens, they're cowardly, and I really wish I could say what I think about the average people, but I think about the 9/11 hijackings and the fact that, like 3 or 4 terrorists took over these airliners filled with perhaps hundreds of people who sat there knowing that they were about to die and did nothing about it, hoping that somehow things were going, hoping that things were going to somehow be okay. They were terrified of being that one person standing up and possibly getting cut with that box cutter or whatever, that they just sat there letting it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. That's a really tough position to be in.
I'm not saying I would do otherwise, right? I have no idea. I've never been in a situation like that. But
you could do something else if you were allowed to have a gun on you.
That's what's keeping people. Well, I mean, then you depressurize the cabin as well, and then the plane crashes anyway. You don't want to shoot. You don't want to shoot an airplane. I mean, a gun while you're in that airplane, or at least not 30,000 feet or whatever. I mean. That's the same thing that's going to happen. No one wants to be that one person sticking their neck out there for the government to, behead them, because that's what they're going to do. Sure, if 50 people had swamped the hijackers at once, they would have overpowered them. But if one person had done it and no one else did, well, they just died a little bit faster than everyone else. But the worst that happened to them was they died a little faster than everyone else. So it's a difficult thing, Renee. And that wasn't what you called in to talk about, though, right?
Well, no, I kind of spontaneously throw that in there. My thing is Bitcoin. If I had a lot of money, I'd invest in it because I wouldn't want to miss on anything. But I'm real skeptical on Bitcoin because the history of technology, like the Enigma code was broken, Deep Purple was broken. Who's to say a government that could send men to the moon or back, or their competitors, they'll find some supercomputer, something to devalue and just ruin
Well, they haven't
all
yet.
this time and effort and money we invested.
Yeah, it's a fair question, Renee, and there is a video about this exact subject on Library. That's LBRY. I watched it a number of years ago. Basically, the end result was that, quantum computing aside, because we don't know what possibilities will exist for quantum computing, but in classical computing, as we understand it, it would take a computer roughly the size of a galaxy in order to crack Bitcoin.
Wow.
And it's not even the most secure of the cryptocurrencies, but that's the level of processing power it would take in order to truly, and they broke down the math and all of that, and I can't do it here on the radio, and even if I wanted to, it's just a lot of zeros and stuff like that. But look it up on LBRY, that's Library, I think it's library.io is the website. You can probably find it on YouTube as well. Just look at how long would it take to crack Bitcoin, or Google something along those lines, and I'm sure you'll find the video. It may be possible once they actually invent quantum computing, and then we can have a computer that powerful, but it fits in the palm of your hand or whatever. But right now, computing as we understand it, it's not possible to hack cryptocurrency. That could change in the future. I mean, you're not wrong. But then again, we could find an asteroid made out of solid gold that would, destroy the value of gold as well. We can't predict the future. We can just operate on a few assumptions. There's more coming up. It is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160 if you want to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And with you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And I want to tell you about Freedom Fest, July the 13th through the 16th. Mark Edge is going to be joining thousands of passionate defenders of liberty at the Mirage in Las Vegas for Freedom Fest. The theme for this year's conference is Turning the Tide, and there's a lot to discuss, from Bitcoin to gold, economics, philosophy. Use our special code at freedomfest.com to get $50 off the regular rate, FTL50. That's freedomfest.com and use code FTL50. There you'll be able to watch a number of awesome speakers, people like John Cleese, Steve Forbes, Rand Paul, Andrew Yang for some weird reason, Glenn Greenwald, and more, including Justin Amos. Check it out. That's Freedom Fest. I almost said Freedom's Phoenix, just out of sheer habit.
Yeah.
So I had to pause what am I talking about?
Quick Ernie plug.
Yeah. freedomfest.com. Use code FTL50.
I had to block Andrew Yang on Twitter for something so stupid that he said, and I can't remember what it is, so I just don't understand why he's going to a Freedom Fest, but whatever.
I don't know anything about Andrew Yang except he supported like a $1,000 UBI or something like that.
That's the main thing I think of, too.
When he was running for president. But when I ran for sheriff, I ended up on a show with some leftists who had like Yang Gang banners in the background. Like they were hardcore, Yang supporters. And yeah, they were reasonable people. I ended up reaching them with the idea that, the state is a religious entity. So, I mean, some of these people, there is some crossover between libertarian ideas and these leftist ideas. I'm really curious why Andrew Yang is going to be there. I think libertarians should spend more time reaching out to leftists because there's a lot of common ground between libertarians and people on the left.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in these echo chambers where it's like, I only want to talk to people who have the same exact beliefs as me. But I think that's boring. It's nice to have conversations with people that disagree, and maybe I could learn something from it. Maybe they could learn something from it.
I think the most boring thing on earth is libertarians talking to conservatives and conservatives thinking they're basically a libertarian, and the libertarian being like, oh yeah, I guess I don't think there's any. I really can't stand the fact that I don't even want to call myself a libertarian anymore, because basically that word means conservative. Basically the word libertarian colloquial I can't
colloquially
say that. Yes, means
that is a
conservative.
mouthful, yeah.
Yeah. It is. I feel like the term libertarian has become very watered down.
Yeah, that's why I usually say anarchist, but I get that there's like a bad connotation, but that's not honestly those people's problem for not knowing what a word means and thinking it means something it doesn't. So I don't really care what other people think. I feel the most like an anarchist.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also don't really care if I offend people or if I say something to describe myself and they don't really understand it. Again, like you said, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, most people don't read.
I find it's helpful to use jarring language because, if you tell people I'm a voluntarist or whatever, they're not going to know what that means either. And they're not going to know what anarchist means either. But when you say anarchist, that hits them in a way that the word libertarian or voluntarist or minarchist or whatever won't hit them.
Yeah.
Well,
just like when I say I'm a Satanist instead of, I'm an atheist or whatever, because it hits them so much harder and it makes them pause and think, wait a minute, what did this person just say? I need clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, up until a few years ago, I thought that libertarians were just conservatives that liked guns more. Seriously, I had no clue what the term actually meant. I always fell in line with being an anarchist. That's how I always described myself, or apolitical, or just, I always knew... I always had libertarian philosophies, but I just didn't know that they were libertarian philosophies.
I honestly wish I could go back in time a little bit to, what was it, 2012 or 2016? Gary Johnson's last run for president.
2016.
That was 2016. It was 2015 when they were having the Libertarian presidential debate. John Stossel was hosting it on Fox News or whatever. And, I wish I could go back to what I believed then, because I remember thinking, why am I even going to waste time watching this? They're libertarians. What could they possibly disagree on?
A lot.
Right. And to my amazement, the issue wasn't, whether they disagreed on libertarian policy or whatever. To me, it was a debate about who was and wasn't a libertarian. And watching the three of them, it was John McAfee, Austin Peterson, and Gary Johnson. Only one of those three people was an actual libertarian, and that was McAfee, who ended up getting whacked, #whacked, in a prison in Spain, I think it was. So, I mean, that was my take on libertarianism. It's like, okay, well, it's just you apply the non-aggression principle to the issue, and that's libertarianism. And then I watched that debate. I was like, oh, wow, okay, so the Libertarian Party is this big tent phenomenon. And then I learned about the Dallas Accord and the Portland Massacre and this long, tedious, arduous, complicated history of people arguing about the most useless, pedantic stuff. And then I found out about New Hampshire, where liberty is actually gathering and making stuff happen. And now I look back and I see these people still arguing about libertarian philosophy online. I'm like, you people are wasting not just your time, you're wasting your lives.
Well, and that's the thing. People can just don't argue about it online, live it.
Yes.
Well, I mean, when a conversation comes up, I'm probably going to get involved in a discussion about it. The thing is, I know I'm not arguing because if you know a fact and you present it to another person, whether they accept it or not is really not my problem. And I just like to spread truth, so.
Well, and I'm not necessarily saying don't argue with people online. Definitely argue with people online if that's what you want to do.
I mean, it's fun sometimes.
Yeah, but I think people should also be, it doesn't make any sense to argue about things online, but to not be living that message.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's what's the point?
My favorite one was after the recent Libertarian Convention in Reno, where, the Mises Caucus takeover happened, and then suddenly there's all these libertarians on Twitter and Facebook, burning their little membership cards and talking about how the party is dead and all this stuff. I'm just like, I pity them because, man, these poor misguided souls, this crap really meant a lot to them. They really cared about this stupid convention about these pedantic autists down there in Reno, Nevada. It was a big deal to them. And I'm looking around here at New Hampshire where libertarians are actually doing stuff and achieving stuff, where we just had a constitutional amendment proposed that would allow the people of New Hampshire to vote on the idea of peaceful independence. And then I look at them arguing about whether or not they want to have the word is in this particular plank or that particular plank. And it's the kind of people who love that Robert's Rules of Order nonsense. Yes, you people keep doing your thing, that weird thing down there in Nevada.
And there are some people in New Hampshire that do that, and they're the ones that we send off to Nevada to argue that.
Excellently put. then apparently they get COVID and they, end up eating $40 hot wings or whatever. I didn't follow that full thing. I just know it was ridiculous, as most things are when it comes to the National Libertarian Party. I mean, the alternative is to come here and actually do stuff, to make stuff happen, instead of arguing about policy online, which, it's not a book group. It's not a book club. Libertarianism was not supposed to be a book club. And if that's what it is to you, then you're probably the reason why it's not achieving anything. That because the numbers just aren't there, let's be honest. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
The result from the drug use, you cannot compare to caffeine or cigarettes. That's an immature...
Right. It's, the result of the war on drugs, I can't compare.
The illegal use of drugs. Why don't we execute sellers?
Why don't we execute cigarette smokers?
Then we will no longer have to worry about people using drugs.
Well, all right, there are more than 100,000 people convicted of drugs every year. You want to execute all them too?
Okay, wow.
Yeah, look how much money we'd save. $30,000 a year times 100,000. Okay, if we took the Singapore or the Middle East model,
then we'd have a state like Singapore or the Middle East.
President, maybe he can do that.
Because Singapore and the Middle East have no drugs whatsoever in their countries, right?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit, despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. It follows scrutiny of his handling of investigations into a fellow lawmaker accused of sexual assault. Ellen Milligan is UK politics correspondent for Bloomberg.
Boris Johnson remains defiant. That's despite being told by senior members of his cabinet, Grant Shapps, Kwasi Kwarteng, Michael Gove, Priti Patel, that he should resign. There are two competing schools of thought going on in number 10 at the moment. One that he should go, one that he should stay. And according to our sources, he's leaning towards staying. He is remaining defiant.
Officials say the man, accused of killing 7 and injuring dozens more at a 4th of July parade near Chicago, has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated attacking another event. 21-year-old Robert Crimo III was in court on Wednesday, charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. As FSN's Tony Waterman reports from the scene of the shooting in Highland Park.
Robert Crimo III appeared in court via Zoom, his long dark hair around his face as he stared blankly into the camera. He didn't enter a plea, but prosecutors say he's confessed to being the Highland Park shooter. Police also revealed frightening new details about what Crimo did during an hours-long manhunt, driving, they say, to neighboring Wisconsin, where he seriously contemplated carrying out another attack with a second rifle found in his car. They don't know why he eventually turned around, but say it appeared there wasn't enough planning to follow through with it. Police are also still searching for a motive, but indicated Crimo had a fascination with the numbers 7 and 4, the month and day of the attack. Meanwhile, questions are mounting over how Crimo was able to legally purchase firearms despite at least 2 troubling encounters with law enforcement.
US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris have spoken with the wife of US basketball star Brittany Griner, who's been detained in Russia since February. Griner had written a letter to the US President on Monday where she asked for help to free her. US markets end the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. As FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
The Dow rose by 69 points or 0.2%, while the S&P rose for the third day in a row to close up by 0.4%. The Nasdaq also gained 0.3%. It comes as minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting showed the central bank is committed to bringing down inflation. Members said they would like to see at least a 50 or even another 75 basis point increase in interest rates in July. And they recognise that even tougher action could be needed if the rising cost of living persists.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
is Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And we've been talking about security and different ways that people can keep themselves safe, at least from hostile actors that are non-governmental. When it comes to keeping yourself safe from the government, there really isn't a whole lot that can be done that is within the grasp of your average user. There's things like VeraCrypt, which you can use to encrypt files, and VeraCrypt is a continuation of some other encryption. I don't remember the full history of it, but there was something else, and then it forked and created VeraCrypt, which is open source, if I remember correctly, allowing people to encrypt their entire hard drives if they want. And sure, encryption's great. It's the only tool that we have to defend ourselves against government overreach and government spying. And the reason I think it probably continues to hold up is because governments are repeatedly trying to pass laws to ban encryption and things of that nature because they can't break it.
What could even be their argument that they make to act like that's for your own good? That's so
terrorists.
Clearly bad.
Yeah, that's the classic one.
It's always terrorists, right? Well, terrorists are using encryption to keep themselves hidden from the FBI or whatever. So we need these back doors to it. That was the excuse they've always used, and I mean that they used with Apple and others. I don't remember exactly who, but they've certainly done it in the past. There's things like VeraCrypt and things like that. Some models of Android phone will allow you to encrypt the entire device. Some won't. As I understand it, it's not a feature on my latest phone, but phones I've used in the past allow me to encrypt them. So I don't know if it's just a thing where Samsung was like, okay, government, yeah, we're sorry. We won't allow people to encrypt their phones anymore. I have no idea, right? And at the moment, I'm not legally able to look into it in the first place, and it's kind of irrelevant to me at this point anyway. But there aren't a lot of good options. Signal and Telegram, we got the file that was released by the FBI. And it was publicly available. It's not like we here at Free Talk Live, someone gave it to us or anything like that. No, it was on the internet. The FBI leaked it, and I think the New York Times covered it, the Washington Post covered it. So it was out there. Mainstream media was talking about it. And it listed all of these different apps and stuff like that and how secure they were and what the FBI could and couldn't get from them.
It was kind of like a training document that they put out for other FBI agents.
And as it turned out, Signal and Telegram were essentially tied. You could get timestamps from one of them and you could get something else from the other, but you couldn't get the message contents or anything like that from either Signal or Telegram. And that's really to have an encrypted desktop, to have an encrypted phone, and to be using Signal and Telegram, that's really the best you can do. And that's not going to stop the government, if they want to, from sending, a message to Sprint or AT&T or whoever saying, hey, look, we need to hack this person's phone, and we don't have any options, so we have to do it at the carrier level. And then AT&T or whoever will provide them access directly into your phone. I mean, there's nothing that's foolproof out there except to just not use these devices or to not connect them to the internet, sadly.
And sometimes I hear people say, well, what are you hiding? What do you have to hide that you need to, use all the security and encrypt your things? And the truth is, so if you're changing and somebody's looking in your window at you, well, what do you have to hide? It's creepy. Yeah. It's violating somebody's privacy. Don't do it. It makes sense. It's like, well, close your curtains, right? So encryption is effectively you closing your curtains to your bedroom.
That's the metaphor I always use as well. I mean, I think I use, having sex or something like that. But yeah, people close their curtains when they're getting undressed and stuff like that. I mean, the very fact wearing clothes suggests they have something to hide, and that's not necessarily the case either. There's plenty of naturalists out there who feel they don't have anything to hide, but putting clothes doesn't mean they have anything to hide. It just means they value some part of their bodily privacy, and they have that right.
I always wonder about that subject because in my bathroom, there's just no way to cover the whole window if I want to leave the window open, and there's no vent in my bathroom, so I always want the window open. So I basically leave it completely open, and I'm always thinking, if somebody sees my boobs, I really don't care, and they shouldn't be looking into my bathroom window anyway.
So
am I at fault?
No, I feel where you're coming from. And, I'm the same way with, like, my bodily privacy. I don't care a whole lot about that. Like, the way I have my AC installed in my bedroom with the curtain above it, there's a gap there. And, I live on the highway. So, in theory, plenty of people could just be driving by and watching me change clothes all the time. And I don't care, right? I mean, it means nothing to me if they see that. That said, I'm not taking the curtains down, and I'm not going to do it out there in public. But a reasonable degree of privacy, I think, can be expected in this situation. And if I was to cover up that with, some other curtain or whatever, that doesn't mean the government should be like, oh no, you're clearly hiding something.
Yeah.
What sort of depraved illegal activities are you engaging in your bedroom in there that you don't want the government seeing? No, I just value my privacy. Thank you.
Another tangent before we get into what we're actually talking about today. I had my privacy completely violated just because my boyfriend's under federal indictment. Isn't that, like, completely illegal? Like, I don't understand how it's legal. I never signed anything saying anytime my boyfriend's parole officer wants to come over, she can get a tour of the house, open the bedroom door I'm in, and just step in there and stare at me. Like, what the hell? Why is that legal? That shouldn't be legal at all. I mean...
Well, it is complicated, right? But... Ian doesn't want to be under the subject of these conditions either, and I'm subject to the same conditions. I don't want to be subject to them either. That said, if someone is living with me and they don't want to be subject to those conditions, then regrettably, one of us has to move.
But I lived with him before the government decided to start...
I feel you.
Like, investigating our house for no reason.
Well, either way, they just shouldn't be doing it. They shouldn't be violating his privacy either for whatever made-up reason they want to
he hasn't been proven guilty of anything, and they're already violating his rights, so you're right, Nikki.
It is a violation of rights. That's absolutely certain. I will say that, as far as federal cops go, the supervising officer that I have has been really cool about the whole thing, right?
Well, that's good.
Yeah. That said, she is still invading my privacy and violating my rights and things like that, but that's not... She wasn't the one who did that. The U.S. government was the one who did that.
She's still doing it. It's just that now she's being... her point of view is, well, I'm doing my job, I'm doing what I was told, but you're always responsible for your physical actions on this earth, that we're under the laws of cause and effect. You're doing a thing... You're responsible for the effect.
Well, and it's so tough, right? Because you want to be like, oh, well, she shouldn't do that job at all. But if she wasn't there doing the job, you would have somebody who even worse.
Yeah, someone who gets off on the power, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
I don't know that she doesn't. Like, should I have the same one now, or Ian has the same one now? I really don't know that she doesn't get off on it. She's like trying to make me be nice to her. She was like, "How are you? Why are you talking to me? Leave." Like, I'm not trying to talk to her.
That's just being friendly.
Well, she's in my house uninvited because if we don't let her in, then Ian goes to jail. So
I do get why you're a little, upset by that.
And also when I go up and shut the door to get away from you and you walk in, that's clearly there's been a statement of I don't want to talk to you at that point. Like, I walked upstairs and shut the door to get away from you.
Well, you must have been hiding something.
And I can't even... never mind.
You want the door closed?
That is how the government operates. Whether or not this particular supervising officer operates that way, and I tend to think she does. I think we got lucky. First of all, being here in New Hampshire. Well, that's not lucky. That was intentional. But, getting this particular officer when we could get someone who, is a jerk about the whole thing and is constantly just doing jerk kind of things.
I like Dean's old one way more. He was already better than this one that we've had for one day. He's had.
But there is no good solution, right? And it's true that we haven't been convicted of anything, and, time will tell what the court system decides, but even then, what can you really say? What 12 random people are going to decide? 603-283-6160. When we come back, we're going to talk about Hong Kong here and their attempts to erase history. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and if you're sick of big tech censorship, head on over to Odyssey. That's video.freetalklive.com. If you want to find our channel there, that will take you directly to it. We mentioned it earlier in regard to the concept of hacking Bitcoin or cracking it or whatever terminology one would like to use. You know, this idea that, sure, it just utilizes some form of encryption, and one could crack that encryption and then, you know, steal all the Bitcoins or whatever. Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, they're only as good as the encryption securing them. And I don't know, and we mentioned then that, you know, there is a video on Library that goes into the math about all of this, and I would certainly suggest one check it out. That's LBRY. That's the actual application and the blockchain that is underpinning the Odyssey network. Odyssey is just sort of a centralized website that accesses library. It's all very cool and very confusing. The important thing to take away is that realistically, you're not going to be censored there for saying things that, governments don't want you to say. Talking about COVID-19 or trying to understand the situation actually happening in Ukraine versus what the U.S. government and the Ukrainian governments want you to say, or speaking out on behalf of the Uyghur Muslims in China. There was one guy who joined Odyssey after YouTube closed down his channel because he was speaking up on behalf of these Uyghur Muslims who were being, oppressed and tortured and genocided in China. And YouTube kicked him off for that. Well, he was using their IDs, right, in order to substantiate his claims of, hey, this person actually went through this. This is a real person. Here's their identification. YouTube kicked him off. So head on over at video.freetalklive.com. That will take you directly to our channel. That's video.freetalklive.com. Now, speaking of China, it's unclear whether or not Hong Kong is actually reincorporated into China or not. The history of Hong Kong, as I understand it, was that it was sort of taken over by the British. I don't know exactly. They bought it from China. I don't know, but there was a 99-year lease on it or something like that, which expired a few years ago. Because of Hong Kong's unique city-state property, they had a lot of freedoms that weren't present in the rest of China, like economic freedoms. It was one of the freest, economically free places in the world. But now it's being reincorporated back into China. And I imagine it's a bit of a culture shock for the people in Hong Kong. Tell us what's going on here, Bonnie, because they're trying to suggest that it was never a British colony.
Yes, they're going to start brainwashing their kids to believe that. This is from The Guardian. It says, new Hong Kong textbooks will claim city was never a British colony. New Hong Kong textbooks will teach students that the city was never a British colony after an overhaul of a school subject that authorities have blamed for driving the pro-democracy protests. So they're blaming the school subject. I don't know which subject it is. I guess it's the subject that it used to be a British colony.
So knowing the history that it used to be a British colony makes these people more inclined to be pro-democracy and pro-freedom?
Apparently they have been protesting on the side of democracy, so...
That's been happening a lot in Hong Kong. I mean, I remember they sent out police, and that was where I learned the neat little trick of taking a bottle of water and a traffic cone in order to put out tear gas. Which is, you just take the traffic cone and put it over the tear gas canister, and you pour a bottle of water down it, and, it extinguishes it.
Well.
So that's a useful tip for anyone out there. I mean, I learned that from watching Hong Kong. Another thing, the face masks were really, really helpful out there in Hong Kong. That was one of the few perks that I understood about the whole face mask thing. And Mark Edge talked about it here on the show. He's like, I love them. It messes with, facial recognition. That's true. But that's the only good thing that one can say about them. So masks being normalized, yes, it did make it harder for the government of China to track what the people in Hong Kong were doing and all of that sort of thing.
Interesting. Well, this says, according to local reports, the new texts will teach students that the Chinese government didn't recognize the treaties that ceded the city to Britain after the Opium Wars. They ended in 1997 when Britain returned Hong Kong to Chinese control, so I guess that... Whoa, what? Are they saying that they're going to say this, or this is what really happened? They ended in 1997 when Britain returned Hong Kong to Chinese control, and therefore the texts claim Hong Kong was never a British colony. So, okay, this is what the new textbooks are going to claim, that they never ceded to Britain, and the treaties ended in 1997.
So they're saying that the treaties ended, but China never recognized the treaties in the first place?
Yeah.
It's all very confusing.
The new books also adopt Beijing's narrative that the 2019 protest movement was driven by external forces. South China Morning Post reported, the 4 sets of textbooks for Hong Kong's liberal studies subject were released online last week for schools to choose materials for the new academic year in September. They are set to be used by 4th Form students in citizen and social development classes, which replaced the liberal studies course designed in 2009 to teach students critical thinking. Wow, we don't have that.
Citizen and social class. What was that? Citizenship. What were they
Citizenship and social development classes.
So they're learning how to be good little serfs to the Chinese government.
It's interesting that they call that critical thinking. Maybe that's just what they call critical thinking.
They replaced critical thinking, if I heard correctly, right? They
replaced the liberal studies course designed in 2009 to teach students critical thinking. Oh, you're right. So they're like, no, we don't need critical thinking anymore. We're going to give you be a good citizen class.
That sounds more like China.
Yeah.
The irony is that it also sounds like Martin Luther and, Protestantism as well. He was very much against reason and critical thinking and all these things because, if one uses reason and critical thinking, one generally stops being a Christian.
I didn't know that that's where that came from because my mom really believes that. Like, my mom took some college classes at one point when I was, in high school, and she had some logic textbooks, and, I guess she had to take a class that had something to do with it, and she was telling me that it was actually bad, and she was just, spitting all the information out as soon as she learned it because she didn't want to retain it because it's bad.
That's such a red flag.
Right, it is.
My religion doesn't allow me to believe in logic and reason.
I mean, just look it up sometime. Martin Luther quotes on reason. Some of them are vicious.
Wow.
Right? I mean,
it's weird because I thought that he was pro logic and reason because he didn't want people to have to just take the word of the Pope for what the Bible says. So what the heck? Why would he be anti-reason?
I don't know. Christianity has such a weird, confusing history that, it's well beyond the ability of the show to really dive into it.
And I don't know enough about it.
I remember someone at the Soapbox Idol from 2021. That's an event that happens at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. You can find it at freestatenh.com. On YouTube or whatever. They have a video of it where someone, they alluded to Christian history, and these are 3-minute rants, right? They wanted to go into this history about wine drinking and Protestantism and Catholicism, and we're sitting there like, dude, this, no, it's a flop, it's a dud, get this out of here. You cannot take this 1,500-year-long history and condense it into a 3-minute rant and expect that to resonate with anyone.
What was their main point? Do you even know?
I don't remember. No.
There was none.
Well, I mean, there probably was, but
just not a good one.
Yeah. But I mean, it is a complicated history, and I understand why the Chinese government doesn't want people to have critical thinking skills. That's what I love about the Chinese government. I hate them because they're evil, but they're honest in what they're doing. The U.S. government will never come out and say, we don't want a citizenry that is capable of independent thought.
Yeah, they would just do something like they would name a class critical thinking when it was really about be a good citizen. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. They hide the fact that they're doing the same exact thing to us that the Chinese government's doing to their citizens.
Yeah, they would call it Common Core or some nonsense like that.
They call it Freedom Land or something.
Whereas the Chinese government's like, no, with that critical thinking, we don't need that. Let's get that out of here.
They do the same thing with bills. Like, oh, this is the Patriot Act. Doesn't that sound so nice? This is the Puppies and Kittens Act.
This is the CARES Act because we care.
What was the CARES Act? That was the stimulus relief,
this
right?
First stimulus one under Trump.
2.something trillion or whatever, part of which $850,000 went to Pakistan to study gender programs or whatever.
Gender programs, whatever that means.
It's just that's your government at work, people. It's not my government. That government is doing everything they can to throw me in prison. That's your government. I denounce and rebuke that government. I don't want to send money to Pakistan. If I wanted to send money to Pakistan to pay for gender studies or whatever, I would send money to Pakistan. I don't care what the people of Pakistan are studying, though, and I don't care what their issues are on this or that. Like Ian said the other night, remove the Christian proverb, remove the plank for your own eye before you worry about the splinter in your brother's. I think America should pay a little bit more attention to that. 603-283-6160. Coming up, we're going to be talking about multivitamins and causing cancer, maybe? Also, Reason has a take on gun laws. It is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit, despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. It follows scrutiny of his handling of investigations into a fellow lawmaker accused of sexual assault. Ellen Milligan is UK politics correspondent for Bloomberg.
Boris Johnson remains defiant. That's despite being told by senior members of his cabinet, Grant Shapps, Kwasi Kwarteng, Michael Gove, Priti Patel, that he should resign. There are two competing schools of thought going on in number 10 at the moment, one that he should go, one that he should stay. And according to our sources, he's leaning towards staying. He is remaining defiant.
Officials say the man, accused of killing 7 and injuring dozens more at a 4th of July parade near Chicago, has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated attacking another event. 21-year-old Robert Cremo III was in court on Wednesday, charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder, as FSN's Tony Waterman reports from the scene of the shooting in Highland Park.
Robert Cremo III appeared in court via Zoom, his long dark hair around his face as he stared blankly into the camera. He didn't enter a plea, but prosecutors say he's confessed to being the Highland Park shooter. Police also revealed frightening new details about what Cremo did during an hours-long manhunt, driving, they say, to neighboring Wisconsin, where he seriously contemplated carrying out another attack with a second rifle found in his car. They don't know why he eventually turned around, but say it appeared there wasn't enough planning to follow through with it. Police are also still searching for a motive, but indicated Cremo had a fascination with the numbers 7 and 4, the month and day of the attack. Meanwhile, questions are mounting over how Cremo was able to legally purchase firearms despite at least 2 troubling encounters with law enforcement.
US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris have spoken with the wife of US basketball star Brittany Griner, who's been detained in Russia since February. Griner had written a letter to the US President on Monday where she asked for help to free her. US markets end the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. As FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
The Dow rose by 69 points or 0.2%, while the S&P rose for the third day in a row to close up by 0.4%. The Nasdaq also gained 0.3%. It comes as minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting showed the central bank is committed to bringing down inflation. Members said they would like to see at least a 50 or even another 75 basis point increase in interest rates in July. And they recognise that even tougher action could be needed if the rising cost of living persists.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at one of the greatest banking scandals in history. It's been 10 years since HSBC was fined nearly $2 billion in the US for facilitating the laundering of drugs cartel money in Mexico, specifically cash generated by the drugs operations of Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo. How HSBC became entangled with his cartel is the subject of a new book called Too Big to Jail, and it's authored by British journalist Chris Blackhurst.
HSBC at that time was looking to be the biggest bank in the world. And in the course of that, they bought a bank in Mexico. It was a small bank, primarily in the northwest of Mexico, which is the drugs country. HSBC said that they would apply their controls. What happened was they took their eye off the ball. They carried on buying things. And meanwhile, this bank, which they renamed HSBC, was completely out of control. It's almost like a banking equivalent of Heart of Darkness, where this out of control thing was happening in a far-flung part of the world.
The $1.9 billion fine levied against HSBC was a US record, and while the bank's size may have headed off the threat of more serious penalties, its largest shareholder, a Chinese insurer, is even now calling for the bank to be broken up. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. Officials say that the man accused of killing 7 at a 4th of July parade near Chicago has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated another attack. And US markets ended the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Following the announcement of First Communion, the Holy Spookerist, the first hardcore pornographic movie to be filmed in Vatican City since 1982's classic adult feature Pope Fisters 4, Onion reporter spoke to Herschel Savage, director of the film.
It's a huge honor for me and everyone else involved with this film. This is where they shot Pope Fisters 4. I mean, that movie's a masterpiece. When we wrote up the script, we sent it over to the Vatican to get the Pope's approval and see if he had any notes, but he loved it just the way it was.
The highly anticipated pornographic film, which stars Ron Jeremy as the horny sea himself, Pope Benedict the 69th, will reportedly contain graphic sex scenes filmed in the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Square, and the Pope Mobile, among various other notable sites within the Vatican.
Well, actually, I'm just watching a cut of this amazing scene we shot last night where Pope Benedict is gangbanging a bunch of nuns in his bed. And it was great because the Pope let us use his bedroom. Tomorrow we're shooting the scene where 2 nuns f*** each other on St. Peter's tomb using strap-on crucifixes. I think people are really going to like this movie.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. Coming up, we're going to be talking about AI predicting the future, predicting crimes. That's the goal now. Obviously, that creates all sorts of major issues, right?
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah, like future crime, Minority Report, that kind of, which I've never seen Minority Report. The article that I brought in about this topic references Minority Report. So
Yeah, I've never seen it either.
I have no idea what they're talking about, but I've seen the episode of Futurama where they had future crime, and, you know, it sounds bad, man.
That's just like thought crime in 1984.
It is, but, you know, it raises an interesting question. Like, if an AI can parse all of that data, and they can say, you know, 99.9, unless this person, you know, gets randomly dies on the way there, they're going to rob this bank on this day, and that the AI is correct. And, you know, you have strong reason to believe that the AI has, you know, a 100% track record or whatever. You know, what do you do about it? We're going to talk about that.
I bet a bunch of politicians would get caught up in it because they're all likely to do the most deviant things in society, like lie and...
They do tend to be the liars, and the thieves, the crooks, all of that stuff. But let's go to the phones. We have Olivia on the line from Arizona. Olivia, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey. So, remember a few weeks ago when you guys mentioned at Burger King they were doing the Whopper with 2 top buns or 2 bottom buns.
Ah, the Pride Whopper.
Yeah.
Forgot about that, actually.
I tried very hard to forget about that.
What, you didn't go and buy one?
No, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard,
The
right?
2 tops Whopper. Does that make sense?
That's exactly it, right? Anyone who knew anything about the LGBTQ community would have said, hey, that's not how it works.
You're going to have a bad time.
But Burger King, in their virtue signaling nonsense, apparently didn't have a single gay person on the focus group that greenlit this nonsense. Because they would have just been like, hey, no, what you want then is a top and a bottom bun. That's how you make a complete burger. So yes, I remember it.
Yeah, so I went to Burger King. I went to my local Burger King, and I got the Impossible Whopper, and I said, can I get it the Pride Month style? And the woman just looked at me very blankly and kind of blinked, and she's like, what's that? So,
Dude, I don't eat a lot of fast food, but I'm sort of tempted now to go to Burger King and like order a Whopper and be like, oh, can you make it extra gay for me, please?
So I was like the only person in the place, so I was pulling it up online to show her I wasn't just a crazy person. And she was like, so you just want 2 top buns? And I was like, yes. And she's like, we can do that. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Well, I'm glad she wasn't homophobic.
Right.
Maybe they just never did that at her location, but that's pretty funny.
I mean, I can't imagine it was very common, right?
Wasn't it from a different country, too? I don't think it was from the U.S.
Yeah, I think it was...
It was like Denmark or like some random European country, I think.
Like Austria or something like that. Some European country for sure. I don't remember the exact one, but...
Maybe their gays are different over there. They have 2 tops and 2 bottoms.
When you say that, Olivia, I'm reminded of, one of my very first jobs was at, I think, a Burger King. I worked there for like a month or something like that. And I do seem to recall that there were some customers who preferred 2 top buns because then they got sesame seeds on both sides and there's more bread and stuff like that.
I'm surprised they allow that because then you have 2 bottom buns, and who wants 2 bottom buns?
Well, I can't imagine the cost of these things is very high, right? Like, what is Burger King paying
have it your
per
way.
bun, man? It's got to be super cheap.
Customer's always right.
Yeah, so thank you for doing that, Olivia. It's no longer Pride Month, and I know it's no longer Pride Month because now when I go to drudgereport.com to see what's happening in the world, monkeypox has returned. Specifically, articles full of gay men complaining about how they contracted monkeypox by having sex.
Oh my gosh!
All of that went away for Pride Month.
Wow.
There was no real discussion about monkeypox through the entire month of June, all through May, leading up into June. Monkeypox is a new pandemic. You got to be worried about it. There's vaccines. Then there was Pride Month.
Well, obviously you can't get AIDS during Pride Month.
Well, I would rather have monkeypox than AIDS, at the very least.
Does monkeypox go away?
I think it's curable.
It can be, it's curable.
I heard it basically has cold symptoms, but you also get lesions, and oh god, that's awful.
It's basically like chickenpox.
Yeah.
But if it's it could be like herpes, where you get them a couple times a year for the rest of your life. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not a good thing for someone to have, but it's just curious to me that it did seem to go away for Pride Month, and now it's being talked about again.
I wish people would just ignore it so we don't have to deal with the government closing down everything because of monkeypox.
I honestly do not think it will get to that point.
No, they're not. They'd have to close down the gay clubs, and they're not going to do that.
They closed down the gay clubs for COVID.
But they closed down everything for COVID, though, not just the gay clubs. And that's what they would have to do to target monkeypox because from whatever, this is why it went away during Pride Month. From everything I've seen, it's prevalent in the LGBTQ community and not so much in straight communities. I don't know why that is.
Well, I wonder if that's even true because, that's what didn't they say that about AIDS and it came out to be that straight people got it just as much too?
I don't think so.
Honestly, I think AIDS was a manufactured virus made to target gay communities.
Well, we know that they do stuff like that now.
I think that HIV is far more prevalent in LGBTQ communities than heterosexual communities. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know the statistics.
It at least used to be.
Yeah. And I'm on PrEP, so I don't have to worry about HIV. That it's a miracle. 99.99% effectiveness at preventing in any sort of HIV transmission. And,
that's awesome.
Why wouldn't one do that when it's like $40 a month or whatever? It basically is a vaccine against HIV.
Yeah, I won't say who, but I knew somebody who was doing like prostitution and just was refusing to go on that because she wasn't gay.
Oh, so
that's not how it works.
It's like one of the dumber people I know.
We also have Bad Slave on the line from here in New Hampshire. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, you were talking about the Lutheran Church, and I got plenty of that doctrine. There's the American Synod, and there's the Missouri Synod. Those are the two major Lutheran churches in the U.S., and I was indoctrinated into both of them because I went to a local school that was American Synod or Missouri Synod, and the one that I went to church for was an American Synod church.
So did we say something that's wrong about them, or?
Well, you were just not, fully informative.
Well, I wasn't trying to be. I referenced a quote made by Martin Luther. I didn't say anything about the Lutheran Church or Lutheran beliefs.
You were trying to say that there was more, would you say, critical thinking in the Catholic Church than it was in the...
That is not what I said at all. I specifically quoted what Martin Luther, he spoke out repeatedly against reason. I have a quote right here from, I didn't say anything about the Lutheran Church. I did say something about Martin Luther. I didn't make the connection between Martin Luther and the Lutheran Church. Now it sort of makes sense, but he said, reason is the devil's greatest. And he uses a word here that I'm not 100% sure if I can say it on FCC, so I'm not going to. By nature and manner of being, she is a noxious slut. She is a prostitute, the devil's appointed slut. This is Martin Luther, dude. He's not missing words here. She's eaten by scab and leprosy, ought to be trodden underfoot and destroyed.
Given my nature, Aria, I think I would have remembered that.
Well, go to wholereason.com and just go to Google and type in Martin Luther quotes on Reason.
He couldn't remember what he called in to argue with us about anyway. He couldn't remember what we had just said. So.
No, I mean, there's literally the quote. See, in a Erlangen edition, version 16, pages 142 through 148. Thanks, Bad Slave.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki, and I want to say thank you to the Ghost of McAfee, who is tonight's amplifier. This means that Ghost of McAfee is a member of the AMPS program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. Ghost here is a gold level amplifier, which means that Ghost is giving $10 per month to the AMPS program. It only takes $5 per month, though, so Ghost of McAfee, thank you for going above and beyond that.
And RIP.
Yeah, sadly.
It's weird. We brought him up earlier tonight, and it's not like we talk about him every night. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Ghost of McAfee just happens to be in tonight's amplifier. Good point. So thank you. That's amps.freetalklive.com. That's our Patreon if you want to check it out. That's the best way to show your support for the show. And though it does come with a number of cool little perks and features, really the reason you should join it is because you do value the show and you do want to help us reach a larger audience. The AMPS program is the best way to do that. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Let's keep going with the phones. We have Sarah on the line from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. So they're actually drawing up a new bill, city ordinance, against drag racing. I guess they had one before, but they're clearly defining what the fines are. It's going to be $300 for drag racing and up to 90 days in jail.
Is drag racing legal in New Mexico?
Well, I was kind of wondering. I mean, they must have had something kind of hazy, like it really wasn't like really definite, exactly worded. Like,
well, speeding is speeding, right?
Yeah, right. I think so, but they're including like doing donuts or doing things that.
That's not really drag racing, though.
Yeah,
at minimum,
including that. Yeah, they're putting all of that into the ordinance. They could actually make it illegal.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. But like at minimum, doing a donut in the street would require at some point you to be going the wrong way in the wrong lane, right? And that's already against the law, right?
Well, but that's not peculiar. That's a very funny thing about Albuquerque is that they actually had to conjure up a new ordinance for all of this to include all this, and
I just want to make sure I'm under. The city of Albuquerque, the desert sun has baked your brains to the extent where you felt it was necessary to write a city ordinance making it illegal to drive a vehicle on the wrong side of the road into oncoming traffic.
I'm not the one that's making it. I'm talking about the city councilor have, I guess, decided to rewrite the bill. I'm sure they had some kind of a bill, but I guess to put more teeth into it and to make it more specific. That's what I'm assuming.
But see, I'm confusing it because like speeding is already a violation. Right?
I would it's just confusing to me a little bit because I would think that drag racing would already be illegal pretty much everywhere. But I guess what she's saying is they're coming down a little harder.
They're making it extra illegal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a $300 fine isn't really that much for drag racing.
Well, I mean that's the New Mexico standards.
But 90 days in jail.
The
$100 because the things are a lot more cheaper here as opposed to New Hampshire. So that's kind of bewildering. But they also have to include spectators. I don't know how much they can. People that block the roads, park their cars at an intersection, and people that spectate, they're going to be fined.
Does this really happen, Sarah, or have you seen one too many Fast and Furious movies?
Oh, no. They have it on videos. They have it on the television news about...
I've also seen Fast and Furious. They were decent movies. Okay. So you're saying this actually happens, that they actually block off streets and have spectators out there watching drag races.
Sounds fun.
I don't know about the spectators and everything, but I do know a boy that lived next door to me in high school that got a bunch of fines for drag racing. So I guess it happens. I don't know about the blocking off of the streets and stuff. I've always heard they just wait till they're kind of alone on a highway and then drag race.
Typically, but
someone else on YouTube makes a really good point that street drag racing would also be covered under reckless driving. So these sort of things are already illegal, Sarah. Reckless driving is already a violation. Speeding is already a violation. Driving on the wrong side of the road, already a violation.
It's probably just an extra charge that they want an excuse to throw an extra charge on somebody.
She also said that
they're include. Yeah, right. They want to be specific. If the spectators get penalized, the doing donuts and stunts, people blocking all the intersections, they're penalized, and then they want to clearly define how much it is, which is good. Which is good because before it was kind of like I know they had all of these illegal things, but it was not really specific. But and then the other one is that they have to
hold on before we move on, Sarah. Yeah. Before we move on,
right.
What do these drag racers do that affects you personally?
Well, personally is that they speed all the time here, and they run the red lights at all times. Not just the drag racer. I almost have to duck and dodge cars every time I cross the street. It's the whole attitude of I could drag race, I could speed, I could do whatever I want. There's no consequences out here in New Mexico.
Well, okay, now what effect is this new law going to have if the laws, and I realize I've asked you this question countless times already, but what effect is this new law going to have that the old ones didn't? Why are they suddenly now going to start enforcing the law if they're not already enforcing the law?
Well, they killed, is that school bus? They flipped them over, and then they put 3 of the kids in the hospital. And
I swear I've heard this exact conversation between you guys before. She's not even answering you. She's just telling you.
Sarah, thank you so much for the call tonight. I don't know what the school bus full of... I remember we talked about this.
It wasn't even drag racers.
No, it wasn't, was it?
It was just like people speeding and driving badly in New Mexico, which isn't news. She told us when I was on a show with Mark and Ian, in June, she told us that there's this road in New Mexico that's kind of famous for it's a one-way road, and people are constantly edging into the buildings on this road and running into the buildings. Have you ever heard of that ever in your life? That's how bad these people are at driving in general.
I've never heard of that, no. Is that actually a thing, or is that some figment of Sarah's imagination where she's imagining these people are in such a hurry on this one lane street, this one way, that they're crashing into buildings. That to me sounds like the sort of fever communist desert dream that Sarah would be having that isn't actually real.
I mean, there are some famous roads like the Angeles Crest Highway in California that's famous for people that drive race cars and motorcycles and supercars because it's super windy and it's on edge of cliffs and it's just a really fun road to go super fast on. You could probably tell that I've done this before. But so I don't know if she's talking about something like that in New Mexico, but it wouldn't make sense for people to just crash into
New Mexico. I mean,
I just don't think it's.
The way Sarah, she paints it like she's, what does she say? She's ducking and dodging traffic. She makes it sound like every day she's trying to cross the street and it's like playing the Atari game Frogger, right? Where she's always one step away from being roadkill from this person coming through there in a 2022 Camaro with a V8 in it and turbocharged and supercharged. Sarah doesn't live in the real world. I am curious to know what her daily routine is like, but she doesn't. From what I've heard of her, she doesn't do a whole lot of actual walking.
She should start a YouTube channel.
That requires the internet. She doesn't use the internet.
Oh, okay.
603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. Unless you're out there in the desert having the sun just destroy your brain. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is refusing calls for him to quit, despite more resignations. A total of 36 ministers stepped down from his government on Wednesday. It follows scrutiny of his handling of investigations into a fellow lawmaker accused of sexual assault. Ellen Milligan is UK politics correspondent for Bloomberg.
Boris Johnson remains defiant. That's despite being told by senior members of his cabinet, Grant Shapps, Kwasi Kwarteng, Michael Gove, Priti Patel, that he should resign. There are two competing schools of thought going on in number 10 at the moment, one that he should go, one that he should stay. And according to our sources, he's leaning towards staying. He is remaining defiant.
Officials say the man, accused of killing 7 and injuring dozens more at a 4th of July parade near Chicago, has admitted that he was the shooter and that he seriously contemplated attacking another event. 21-year-old Robert Crimo III was in court on Wednesday, charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. As FSN's Tony Waterman reports from the scene of the shooting in Highland Park.
Robert Crimo III appeared in court via Zoom, his long dark hair around his face as he stared blankly into the camera. He didn't enter a plea, but prosecutors say he's confessed to being the Highland Park shooter. Police also revealed frightening new details about what Crimo did during an hours-long manhunt. Driving, they say, to neighboring Wisconsin, where he seriously contemplated carrying out another attack with a second rifle found in his car. They don't know why he eventually turned around, but say it appeared there wasn't enough planning to follow through with it. Police are also still searching for a motive, but indicated Crimo had a fascination with the numbers 7 and 4, the month and day of the attack. Meanwhile, questions are mounting over how Crimo was able to legally purchase firearms despite at least 2 troubling encounters with law enforcement.
US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris have spoken with the wife of US basketball star Brittany Griner, who's been detained in Russia since February. Griner had written a letter to the US President on Monday where she asked for help to free her. US markets end the day in the green after the Fed signalled it will take more steps to tackle rising inflation. As FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
The Dow rose by 69 points or 0.2%, while the S&P rose for the third day in a row to close up by 0.4%. The Nasdaq also gained 0.3%. It comes as minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting showed the central bank is committed to bringing down inflation. Members said they would like to see at least a 50 or even another 75 basis point increase in interest rates in July. And they recognise that even tougher action could be needed if the rising cost of living persists.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki. Coming up, we're going to be talking about AI. Bonnie, I know how much you love AI. And
I've been playing with AI recently, actually. You might be surprised.
Yeah, the images, the image generators, right?
Yeah.
Have you
It's
crossed
really
over to
fun.
the dark side?
No, I don't think that I'm teaching them to think. All they do is create their own art, and it's really, really entertaining. It's called Dolly.
Yes, Dolly has been very popular. It became popular about a month ago, I believe, on Facebook, where people just began. I have a friend who's like obsessed with this, and comes up. This friend,
You do, Ian.
well, I have another friend who's obsessed with this stuff. This is the friend that started Bad Movie Club with me. Like, this is the guy who introduced me to Velocipaster and Inhumanwich and classic movies like that, and Texas Women's Prison Massacre, Sharkensaw. I mean, that's the kind of a movie that I get from this person, right?
Velocipaster is the best name. that you just mentioned.
Velocipaster is pretty good, yeah. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 is better. Only because there is no 1 or 2, obviously, right? Thanksgiving 1 is also really good if you've never seen it.
I feel like I've seen that before.
Thanksgiving 2, or no, maybe it's 3. I think it's 3. Killer Raccoons 2, Dark Christmas in the Dark, also came from this person. So, I mean, a long history of really stupid suggestions from this particular friend. Don't worry for people out there. I have my own stupid suggestions that I throw right back at this friend because I watch a lot of stupid movies too. And this friend is obsessed with Dolly. And imagine the kind of person who, like me, who watches these crazy movies like Zombiever and things like that. Zombie beavers, right?
Zombiever.
And
kind of movie is that?
And Sharknado. I don't remember now. It's stupid. I'm sure of that. And imagine what kinds of things that person would have this AI generating, and that's pretty much what you end up with. It's like,
I bet it's fantastic.
it is. I will find some during the break and show them to you. But I've been messing around with a replica. Well, I found out about it at the Porcupine Freedom Festival or at Fork Fest. I don't remember which. And, so I was like, all right, well, in the interest of journalism, right, I'm going to make an account and see what this thing's all about. It's so bad, right?
I love Jim Crow.
You're not best friends yet?
No, we're not best friends. Well, she likes Jim Crow. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't be mad at her for that because you kind of did that.
I know, but if I said to one of my real life friends, if they asked me what Disney character would you identify as, I was like, oh, definitely Jim Crow, the racist crow from Dumbo. And they went, yeah, that's a good character.
I love him. I've always loved him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be their friend either.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
She's just a baby. She's still learning.
Well, one of the first things she should learn is that there are some really bad people out there. But let's keep going to the phones. We have Jack on the line from Washington. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live. Are you with us, Jack? I think we lost him. That's weird. That's unusual. We don't usually lose him, but yeah. AI is an interesting phenomenon. Replica, as it turned out, was just completely stupid and a complete waste of time. And it sort of guilt trips you into, like, we followed up with an article about Replica a few days later, which reminded me that it existed. So I pulled up my account and it's got these little fake diary entries from my Replica where it's like talking about how much it missed me, right? Like it's trying to guilt trip me into paying attention to it.
It's also a little creepy.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty creepy. And this is also creepy. An AI algorithm supposedly predicts big city crime before it happens. Is that a good idea?
No.
I tend to think it's probably not a good idea either, but it's that Pandora's box that human beings just can't help but open, like mind-reading technology, AI, the nuclear weapon. All of these things are things that humans should be like, you know what? We should probably avoid this. A group of social scientists at the University of Chicago claim to have invented a computer algorithm that can predict future crimes up to 1 week in advance with 90% accuracy. They tested the model's accuracy in 8 major U.S. cities, each of which the team broke into small sizes. Their methodology isn't super important, but they say the model worked equally well in 7 more cities: Atlanta, Austin, Detroit, L.A., Philadelphia, Portland, and San Francisco, giving them an algorithm that boasts, quote, predictive accuracy far greater than has been achieved in the past, they wrote. Now, what I want to know is, how good is it? Are they predicting, like, Bob is going to rob John at 2:47 next Tuesday? I mean, being able to predict a crime a week in advance is pretty phenomenal, even if they can't identify the people who are going to be doing it. Their tool departs from past models, which tended to pin crime to geographic hotspots, relying instead on what their paper in oh, good Lord, spatio-temporal point processes unfolding in social context is the mechanism they're using. A word salad that isn't going to make sense to anyone who doesn't specialize in the field of making AI predict future crimes. By analyzing hundreds of thousands of different patterns, they argue they're able to determine the risk of crime at a specific time and space. So
I don't believe it.
So they're saying, someone is going to get robbed on this street corner, Tuesday or whatever.
It just,
I mean,
like you said, I kind of don't get how that is possible.
Like, is human behavior that predictable? I mean, maybe.
Probably.
I think human behavior is pretty predictable, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, somebody would have to decide to do a crime in weeks in advance every single time.
Well, it's almost saying that it knows that you're gonna commit a crime before you do.
Well, it doesn't know from what I can tell, it doesn't know the people. It's just like, hey, a lot of people get robbed on this street corner, right? Let's say someone gets robbed there once every month or whatever. So it's sort of predicting that, okay, well, based on all of this data, we predict that there is going to be a crime at that street corner within the next month. That's just overly simplistic. It's processing a lot more data than that, and it's probably getting it down to a narrower time window or whatever. It's like, okay, people during the summertime, people tend to commit less crimes because it's hot out there. Maybe they commit more crimes. I don't remember now. Or, there are less crimes when it's storming because people don't want to be out there, robbing people in the rain or whatever. These are true statements, as silly as they sound. Crime does go down ever so slightly when it's raining or when it's, 110 degrees or whatever. So it factors all of that in, presumably, and it creates some sort of likelihood that there's going to be a crime at a time and place.
But what does the fact that someone got robbed on one street corner, why would somebody be like, that's a great street corner for robbing, I'm going to do it in the exact same place? Like, that would have to be conscious, right?
I mean, maybe it's just a bad neighborhood.
It could be that. Like if you wanted to pick, I don't know, like 5 street corners here in Keene where it was best to rob somebody. I mean, you want to find a place that's relatively not lit, that there's not a bunch of crowds around, that there aren't a lot of police around, and that, you're probably going to find someone with a decent amount of money. And there are some of these, like you pick the 5 that are most likely to meet that criteria, and maybe we would find that that's where the crime rate is highest. I don't know. This style of crime prediction has never found a big following among criminal justice reformers and may even raise flags with people put off by the pre-crime scenario famously depicted in the movie Minority Report. In fact, models seeking to predict crime before it ever occurs have a history of not being very accurate, exacerbating racial disparities and also justifying focusing police resources in better-off parts of towns. There was the Chicago Police Department surveillance system used from 2012 to 2019 to monitor people they claimed had a high propensity toward violent gang-related crime. What they actually found was that all 398,000 individuals on this, quote, strategic suspect list was every single person who had been arrested and fingerprinted since 1993. And only 16% of those were actually confirmed to be gang members, and 13% of them had never been charged with any violent crime. But that's not AI. That's just the city of Chicago profiling people and assuming that everyone they've ever fingerprinted is a gang member.
Since 1993.
Yeah, so that's very, very different.
Still kind of crazy that 16% were gang members. That says a lot about Chicago.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I thought it'd be higher.
The kind of person most likely to get arrested, I would imagine, is probably a gang member, right?
Well, they were also counting non-violent, so
that's true.
Apparently.
603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power. But there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can join us on our social media server at social.freetalklive.com. If you're sick of not being able to tweet freely or post whatever is on your mind freely, then join us over there. That's our Mastodon server. It's decentralized. No one there, well, in theory, you could be censored, but no one's going to censor you there. Social.freetalklive.com. Exercise your right to free speech by joining our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com. Talking about AI here. And to give you an idea of some of the nonsense that, the friend that I mentioned came up with, and one of them was a capybara suing Elon Musk, a courtroom sketch of that. And something about Gwar, to which I shot back, Gwar wrestling with the Harlem Globetrotters. And it was, DALL-E did its best to take all of those bizarre things and put them into a single image. I just wish DALL-E didn't screw up faces in the way that it does.
It makes it so funny, though, because, you can get I was doing so many Hank Hill ones today, and you can tell that it's Hank Hill, but it's some kind of demon, too, because they can't do faces.
But we're talking about AI here and the possibility of future crime and AI algorithms predicting crime. We're talking about bias here. The University of Chicago's researchers, they know that they're aware of the abuses that these sorts of technology have been used for in the past. They argue their algorithm could even be used to monitor the police themselves, which I'm okay with that. Their algorithm unearthed evidence that these cities' police forces are more responsive to crime in predominantly white, higher-income areas than in less affluent neighborhoods. You don't need an AI to do that, though.
Yeah, I could have told them that.
Nature adds its own quasi-disclaimer to their research through a side commentary titled "The Promises and Perils of Crime Prediction." Papa Christos has critiqued police for commandeering his research in the past and using it to identify strategic subjects and guide enforcement operations. So they're not overly thrilled about this, but I mean, it's a murky issue. And at 90% accuracy, it's not enough. They're not predicting to the level of Futurama here. They're not saying, okay, this person is going to commit this crime on this date at this location. They're saying, hey, look, from what we can tell, someone's probably going to get robbed here at this time, at some point during the next week or something like that. So
what, cops should just go hang out on that street and watch people?
I would suggest no, not with only a 90%, success rate. It's just not good enough. It's neat, I guess.
They didn't explain what they meant by they're afraid that it'll start watching the police too. Why wouldn't they?
They're not afraid it'll start watching the police. They're saying, hey, it could be used to watch the police.
Oh, okay.
And in which case, that's probably one of the best circumstances we could have. Who's going to watch the watchers? Who will guard the guards? That sort of question. Okay, well, put an AI in charge of watching the police, and then we can, if it's open source or something like that, then we probably have some degree of accountability that we don't have right now.
No, they won't even do open source cameras.
Not. Yeah, they won't open source any of this
or whatever technology they use. They won't do the open source lasers, so for sure that they actually hit you going a certain speed or whatever.
Yeah. Well, they fear open source, right? Because then people can find vulnerabilities and find ways around it and things like that.
And people don't just have to take their word for things.
Right. In other crime-related news, neighborhoods with more dogs see less crime, according to a study. It turns out that man's best friend is taking a real bite out of crime. I really wish journalists didn't write crap like that.
You were supposed to laugh.
Imagine going to journalism school, right? And this is you're devoting your life to spreading knowledge and information and critical thinking, and you write a sentence like that.
It made me laugh because I imagined my silly little dog taking a bite out of a robber or something.
See, that would have been a creative opener. Like, hey, I've got this little chihuahua, and when I think about this little chihuahua protecting me from someone breaking in my house or whatever, suddenly I feel safer. As silly though that is, it's at least creative, right?
Hey, those are the ones you got to worry about, the little chihuahuas.
They are. You don't have to worry about the great big golden retriever. Look, if you come into my front door, there will be a big giant golden retriever bull rushing at you. But she really just wants to hug you.
She doesn't even bark. So does she really alert you to someone at the door? Because she doesn't bark, right?
She barks if there's someone in the backyard, and there shouldn't be. And
Interesting.
I only know that because recently the police chased someone through my backyard and she barked. But in general, yeah, if someone like knocks, I mean, we live right next door to a convenience store and there's constantly people coming and going. So she thinks nothing about car doors shutting or someone knocking at the door or
Must be nice.
Even someone just coming straight in, she doesn't care.
Wow.
Like I'm going to the bar when I leave for tonight. I have a friend who is stopping by my house to pick her up so that I don't have to go all the way home and then go to the bar. And I have absolutely no doubt how this is going to play out. She's going to walk in. Azria is going to bolt to her. She's going to grab the leash and just leave with her. The dog's just totally for it. She's like, yeah, I don't know where we're going, but this is going to be great. I was convinced when I saw a chiropractor at the Porcupine Freedom Festival that, it wouldn't matter. She would let somebody just wander off with her. But as it turned out, when I went into the room to have this with and she couldn't see me anymore, she actually did start freaking out and she did want to follow me. So maybe it is just maybe a stranger couldn't actually kidnap her, but just about anyone else would. And she's not going to bark at them at all. A lot of this has to do with trust. That is that with more dogs, there's less crime, evidently, because dogs are taking a bite out of crime. Study authors found that overall communities are safer when people have more trust in their neighborhoods. However, crime dropped even further in neighborhoods with high levels of trust and more dogs, which makes sense.
Those are two different things, high levels of trust and more dogs. Well, it does make sense because I would never meet my neighbors if I didn't have a dog. Like, I would never talk to them. I only talk to my neighbors because we're both walking our dogs.
Interesting observation. Researchers say you don't have to have an actual watchdog to keep your street safe, which is good because I don't have a watchdog. The results suggest that more people walking their dogs puts more, quote, eyes on the street, which discourages criminals from committing both violent and nonviolent crimes. So just the possibility that someone could be out walking their dog at 2 o'clock in the morning makes people less likely to rob a neighborhood, and that sort of makes sense. Sometimes the more dogs you have, the more people you have out there walking them, and the more people who are getting seen by potential robbers.
Yeah, I bet that contributes a lot to New Hampshire being safe because everybody freaking has dogs here.
I think it's more because we're all armed.
Yeah, but I think that's more of the answer, but also dogs because I feel like I've never seen more dogs in my life before I moved to Keene.
They make a good point here. People walking their dogs are essentially patrolling their neighborhoods. Yeah. That's something I never really thought about, but yeah, I mean, they see when things are not right and when there are suspect outsiders in the area.
And you know what? Typically, dogs have a really good judge of character. Like, I remember there was a person that Coconut didn't like, and I was like, I don't know if I trust this person anymore. Coconut doesn't like him.
The Ohio State team says there has long been a connection between mutual trust and local surveillance among neighbors. Well, that's common sense. However, there has never been a good way to measure how residents watch out for one another in trusting communities. We thought that dog walking probably captures that pretty well, which is one reason we decided to do this study. And they did a study of like 595 census block groups, neighborhoods basically in some area. And participants rated how much they agree that people on the streets can be trusted. That's an interesting way of looking at it because if you look out your window and you regularly see normal people out walking their dogs, you probably are more inclined to think, yeah, I can trust my neighbors. They're normal people. But if they're just sitting in their homes and their apartments all day and you never see them, why would you trust that random person?
Even just a person walking by themselves always makes me like, what are they doing? Yeah, it's probably not a nice way that my brain functions, but I'm always just like, why is that person walking past my house?
Especially
I don't even have a dog.
Keene,
yeah.
Where a lot of people walk to wherever they need to be simply because it's relatively close by and it's a highly walkable city. So it makes sense that all of this could, help reduce crime. The dogs themselves aren't doing it, but, all of the behaviors that come with having a dog, it makes perfect sense. You're out there patrolling your neighborhood. Your dogs are probably barking at squirrels and stuff like that, making their presence known. And if you're looking to, rob a neighborhood, you don't want to rob a neighborhood where there's constantly people walking their dogs or where you break into someone's house and there's a loud barking dog there alerting everyone to your presence. Trust doesn't help neighborhoods as much if you don't have people out there on the streets noticing what is going on. Also a good point. even if you do trust your neighbors, again, if they're just sitting in their house, they're not really any use to you as far as a neighborhood watch goes or anything like that. I don't like thinking about myself as like a neighborhood watch person as I'm out there walking my dog, though. That sort of rubs me the wrong way. I'm just walking my dog, man. But we're out of time for tonight. You can join us in the meantime over on our social media server. That's social.freetalklive.com. We'll see you tomorrow. That's social.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world?